guys, how y'all doing? Welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be filming my April reading wrap-up. I actually read 6 books in the month of April. Let's just get started and talk about the books that I read this month. So the first 2 books that I read were Restore Me and also Defy Me by Tahereh Mafi. So I reread Restore Me in preparation for the release of Defy Me in April. I have a lot of things to say. So let's talk about Restore Me first. So like I said, I reread this one in preparation for Defy Me. This is not my favorite in the series by any means. I would even argue that it's one of my least favorites because nothing really happens in this book. A lot of this book is just the characters interacting and figuring out what's going on, and we get a lot of information in this book. So not a whole lot happens plot-wise, but I'm a naturally character-driven reader, so I didn't really mind all that much. I love learning more about these characters and just spending time with them. Kenji Kishimoto shined bright in this book, let me tell you. I love him with my whole damn heart, and he is beautiful in this whole book. Warner and Juliet, and I love seeing our characters again, and I ended up rating this a 4.5 out of 5 stars, which is the same rating that I gave it last year when I read it for the first time. And then with Defy Me, there's a lot of mixed reviews going around for this book. A lot of like hardcore Shatter Me fans don't love this book. However, oh my god, Joey is so cute on my bed right now. I need to take a photo. So despite all of the mixed reviews out for this book, I still really enjoyed it. I absolutely adored this book. I was really nervous going into it because of all of those like mixed reviews and all like the negative things people were saying about it online, but I really loved it. So I read most of this book in the span of one day once I got like the ball rolling. I read it really super fast. I could not put it down. I was also texting John all of my like real-time live reactions to the book, which I feel like really added to the whole reading experience. It was just really fun to be able to say anything that I wanted because he'd already read it, so it was really fun to be able to share my reactions with him about everything that went on in this book. Now, I do see people's critiques with this book. I know John has a problem with the writing in this book. He said that I didn't really feel like Tahereh Mafi, and I was just so into the story that I wasn't really paying attention to the writing, but in hindsight I can see that critique, but it didn't bother me as I was reading, so I don't really care. He also had a problem with a couple of things that actually go down in this book, but I personally enjoyed everything that happened, so I'm okay. I do have to say that we did receive a lot of information in this book, just like in Restore Me, but in this one it did at times feel a little info dumpy. We're just getting like onslaughts of information. We get Kenji's point of view in this book, and I found that at the beginning his chapters just felt like information dumps. Like that's all we were getting from his point of view, was just a way for us to get information, which was kind of bothersome, but not enough for me to like dislike it in any way, because I just love this world so much and I love the series so much that I honestly, you can info dump all you want and I will just like take it and just love it. So our characters were separated for the majority of this book, and I don't love it when our main characters are separated from each other because I love character interactions, especially between Juliet, Warner, and Kenji, and in this book they're not all together, so that was a little upsetting and like I didn't love that, but when they did come together I was really happy. So overall, I know there's a lot of negative reviews and like mixed reviews in regards to this book, but I personally really loved it. It was so intense, so emotional, and I just had a really fun time reading it. So I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. I just had a really fun time. That might be a little bit generous, but I love this series so much that honestly, Tahereh Mafi can take all the 5 stars that she wants from me and I'll be happy to give them to her, so it's okay. And then the third book that I read in the month of April was Crown of Midnight by Sarah J. Maas. This was the March book of the Maas Along that I'm co-hosting with Peyton Reads. It's our Sarah J. Maas read along for the entire year. This was our March book, but I had a lot of things going on in March that I just didn't end up getting around to this book, so we were quite delayed. We still are delayed. Like, we are awful hosts. But anyways, so I ended up reading this in April instead of March. But yeah, so if you guys saw my March wrap up, you would know that I didn't love Throne of Glass during the reread. So I was a little nervous going into this one, thinking that I wouldn't like it because of my reaction towards Throne of Glass. But thank goodness I enjoyed this one at least a little bit more than I enjoyed Throne of Glass, which I feel like is a good sign, hopefully, for the rest of the series and going forward in this read-along. I'm still not finding myself obsessed with this series like I was the first time around back in 2015. I remember just being completely enamored by these books and just like loving them to pieces, and I just don't feel that way anymore. So this book still hasn't changed how I feel about that. I'm still not obsessed, but I feel like it's a step in the right direction. So I found myself caring more about the characters in this read-through than I did in Throne of Glass, which is really good because I was feeling so scared during book 1 because I just wasn't caring about Kale or Dorian, and I was just so like confused as to why I wasn't caring about them anymore. But in this book I do care slightly more for them. I feel like I'm definitely Team Kale now, which is so weird because I was like hardcore Team Dorian, and now that I'm rereading the books I have no idea how past me was obsessed with Dorian. I just don't see it anymore. I don't see the chemistry between him and Selena. I don't see it. So as of right now I'm Team Kale, but I know that I like somebody else down the road, so Team Kale won't last for long. But as of right now I am Team Kale, which is such a freaking plot twist. I did not see that coming for me to like change my ship, but I did. So there is a problem with this book, and it's people's like one of their biggest issues with Sarah J Maas and with this series. I don't want to spoil it, but there is a character in this book who is a person of color, and they are killed off. She's like the only person of color in this entire series, and she was killed off, and she shouldn't have been killed off. It wasn't really necessary. Me and Peyton talk about this in our Mass Along live show, which you guys can go check out on my channel. I have a playlist of both of our live shows that are currently up, but it was unnecessary. I'm mad about it. It did not need to happen, and I did not notice that the first time that I read it, but I definitely noticed it this time, and I was very, very upset about it. So the end of this book did get me excited to continue on to Heir of Fire, but I'm still not obsessed with the series. But overall, this was an okay read. I had a much more enjoyable experience reading this one than I did with Throne of Glass. It didn't feel like I was pulling my hair out while reading this book, which is great because reading Throne of Glass was a little bit torturous at times. So I'm glad that I enjoyed my experience of this one a little bit more, and I gave this one a 3.75 out of 5 stars. And then the next 2 books that I picked up were Geek Gorilla and The Princess and the Fangirl by Ashley Poston. This is a companion series. I think there's one more coming out. I don't know if that's the end of it, but they are companion books. So let's start off with Geek Gorilla. So Geek Gorilla was a reread, and I was rereading this one in preparation for The Princess and the Fangirl, just to kind of catch myself up, remind myself of what happened and all the characters and everything. So while they're not direct sequels and you don't need to read this one to read this one, although I do highly recommend that you do, I just wanted to like kind of catch myself up and remind myself of the characters, and also I just really wanted to reread this book. So I mean, it was a perfect excuse. So I reread this one and I annotated it. This is my second copy in paperback, and I annotated it. Look at all of those tabs. Oh, what the actual hell. So I annotated this one, and I honestly had such a good time annotating this book and rereading it. It was just so much fun. I actually vlogged my experience of reading this book last year for the first time, so you guys can go catch my Cramathon vlog, which I also have a playlist of all my reading vlogs if you guys want to go check that out. But yeah, I absolutely love this book and all these characters so much, and it was so much fun being able to jump back into this book and get to re-experience them all again and just fall in love with them all over again. I also didn't think that I had forgotten that much about this story. If you guys know me, you know that I have an awful memory when it comes to reading books, and I don't remember most details, and I thought that I had this one pretty covered, but I did actually forget some important aspects, such as our main character Elle's best friend Sage is actually a lesbian, and I don't know how I forgot that. But there is a female-female relationship presented in this book, which is really great. So if that's something that you really enjoy seeing in books, then this one definitely has that in there, which is really, really exciting. So this book is just great. If you love fandom, if you love nerdy things, I definitely recommend reading this book. If you like fairy tale retellings, I definitely recommend reading this one because it is a retelling of Cinderella, if you could not tell. And it's just geeky, wonderful fandom awesomeness, and Ashley Poston is a queen with the words and queen with fandom, and I just highly recommend this story. I naturally gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. Did you guys expect anything less than? But I love this story so much. Okay, so Princess and the Fangirl is a retelling of The Princess and the Pauper. I am not familiar with that story, so I can't speak on the retelling aspect of it, but I really enjoyed this book. I wouldn't say that I enjoyed it as much as Geek Gorilla. There was just something that just didn't capture me the same as Geek Gorilla. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was the characters or if it was just the story itself, but something about this did not capture me in the same way as Geek Gorilla. But that being said, I still really loved this book. It was such a super fun and quick read, and again, it was full of fandom and geekiness and just wonderfulness all around. In this book, we follow Jessica Stone, who is an actress in the new reboot TV series for Starfield. She plays Princess Amara, and she's at ExcelsiCon kind of promoting the movie and like getting excited for the sequel and such. So that's that. And then we also follow Imogen, who is a huge fan of Starfield, and she is at this convention as well, and she's kind of trying to make this campaign to save Amara because of Amara's fate at the end of the Starfield movie. I got Geek Gorilla in an Indigo book box, and it came with this Save Amara pin, and in this book she actually gives Save Amara pins out, so I kind of have something from the book, which I think is really cool. Yeah, and basically Imogen and Jessica kind of look very similar, so one day during ExcelsiCon, Imogen gets mistaken for Jessica and ends up doing a panel as Jessica Stone, and nobody really notices. Jessica decides to use this to her advantage, and she suggests to Imogen that they swap places for the weekend of ExcelsiCon. That's what that book's about. I'm really bad at describing things. It's fine. So I really enjoyed learning more about Jessica, and I really enjoyed our new character Imogen. I also really loved the relationships in this book. Again, there's another female-female relationship in this book, and we also get to see Sage and her partner in this book as well, in cameos and such. And then also Imogen's parents are lesbians. Lots of representation in this book. It's wonderful. Yeah, and I also just really enjoyed cameos in this book from Elle and Darian and Sage and all of the wonderful characters from Geek Gorilla. So I gave this one a 4.5 out of 5 stars. The sixth and final book that I read in the month of April was Beautiful Creatures by Cami Garcia and Margaret Stohl. I actually listened to this on audiobook, and it was a reread for me. So I read this back in 2014 before I even started my booktube channel, and I absolutely loved it when I first read it, and so I wanted to reread it so that I could finally continue on with the series, and so I found the audiobook for it and I just started listening. I did not enjoy this book as much as I did when I originally read it when I was 14. However, I did have an enjoyable time listening to it. The audiobook was a unique one. I haven't listened to an audiobook like this before. It has sound effects in it, which I found kind of added to the atmosphere of the book and kind of heightened things up in intense moments and such. So I actually quite enjoyed that. I didn't think that I would when I first heard them, but I actually ended up by the end really enjoying it and thinking that it really added something to the story. This book, if you don't know, is about our main character Ethan Waite, and he lives in this boring old town of Gatlin, and he cannot wait until the day he graduates and he can leave for college and leave Gatlin, until a girl named Lena Duquesne moves into town, and she's like no other girl he's ever met before. Love the YA cliches. And he ends up getting to know her, finds out that she is a caster, and he's kind of thrown headfirst into this whole world of casters and magic. And so he finds out that once Lena turns 16, on her birthday, it gets decided if she is a good caster or a bad caster. Yeah, so the whole book they're trying to find out how they can like stop this from happening. And I mean, it's an interesting read, it's an interesting world. I don't find myself like that attached to the characters or anything like that. It was just something to listen to, if I'm being completely honest. It wasn't anything special in my opinion. So overall I gave this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars. So those are all of the books that I read in the month of April. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Give this video a thumbs up if you did enjoy it. Comment down below what books you guys read in the month of April, because I'd really love to know. Subscribe if you have not yet already, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!